In today's economy, more people than ever are looking to buy and sell businesses. But how do you do it? Welcome to the Deal Board, presented by Transworld Business Advisors. Straight talk about real deals and real people. Listen to stories, interviews, and expert advice to help your business sale, merger, or acquisition process. Now, here are your business exit experts, Andy and Jessica.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is another great episode of the Deal Board, and here we are, pre-conference, rolling into the second quarter of 2025, and the world is certainly changing here in the United States, and things are in flux. And I thought the best way to have a great Deal Board episode is let's check in with everybody across the country. And the great news is we have people from all over the country here today. And I'll start with the person who's in the room with me just to my left to introduce himself, Rupesh Bharad. So Rupesh, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us where you're from?
Thank you so much, Andy. Hi, this is Rupesh Barad, a Transworld Business Advisor, Richmond, Virginia, with offices in Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and West Virginia.
Excellent. And I'm going to try to go east to west. So I'm going to start with Sam Curcio.
Yes, thanks for having me, Andy. Sam Curcio with Transworld, New York. We cover the Manhattan and part of New York Metro.
Excellent. And then I'm going to shoot right to Chicago and introduce Matt Friscia.
Yeah, Matt Friscia, Transworld Business Advisors of LaGrange, in the southwest suburbs of the Chicagoland area.
Thanks, Matt. And I'll jump right down. I'll go a little farther west and get with Scott Hislop.
Hey, thanks, Andy. So Scott Hislop, I'm with Transworld Business Advisors North Star. I have offices in Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin.
And then I'm going to come back down to the south and say hello to Bill Kleinschrodt.
Hey, Andy, Bill Kleinschrodt, Transworld Gulf Coast, covered the Floribama, just fresh off the annual mullet toss weekend down there, so all the way to Louisiana, so Central Gulf Coast, Mark.
All right, and then we're going to head over to the Pacific time zone and talk to Johnathan Choe. So, Jonathan, what's happening?
Hey, thanks, Andy. Hey, guys. Johnathan Choe with Transworld. We have offices in Oregon, Southern California, and LA, and in Columbus, Ohio.
All right, great. And, I'll tell you, everybody out there who's listening, this group of folks have sold, thousands of businesses over the last, couple of years. And we're starting off 2025 on a great note, I know. And so I have the Biz Buy Sell report, and I have it the old-fashioned way. If you're watching on YouTube, you just saw me hold up a report with paper, and I don't print too many things, but coming into the studio. And I think the big takeaway from Q1 is that things held pretty steady, that there was literally a 9% increase of the number of businesses that changed hands from Q1 of 2023 to 2024. And then it declined in Q3 to Q4 of 2024. So we're seeing that, things are picking up in the first quarter. And there's been a increase in the median price and a slight little bit of an increase in the multiples. So very resilient through the first quarter. And I just want to, go around the room and talk about that, what they're seeing. And, I'll go in reverse order of the folks that we introduced. And, Jonathan, what are you seeing on the West Coast and, up in Oregon and down to LA?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is, a steady amount of business. And we're really starting to see towards the end of the first quarter a lot of interest in business owners with valuations and looking at selling their businesses. And our listings have picked up in all of our markets. And, a lot of folks that we're seeing are kind of coming back from previous conversations. So it's a nice mix of folks that we've talked to, but it seems to be the activity seems to be picking up for us.
Yeah, I think that's happening with us here in Florida as well. And I'll shoot over to Scott. Scott, is it baby boomers are finally coming to the market, or people reading the tea leaves and getting more active this quarter?
We certainly are. I agree with Jonathan. Our uptick on seller activity. It's interesting though. It's not just baby boomers, and I'm envious. We have a lot of 30 and 40-year-olds with a $4 and $5 million business. I don't know what the heck I was doing when I was 30 and 40 that I didn't have that, but I'm envious of those entrepreneurs that are looking to do something different. But we are having more conversations today with larger businesses, across our team. I'm hearing more $8 to $15 million deals in the pipeline that we didn't used to have before. But for buyer activity, actually, our first quarter, we were 21% higher than we were a year ago in the first quarter. So our buyer activity is increasing there. And as far as closings, I think the first quarter was our third best on record. I've been doing this 9 years, so not terrible. And I'm excited about what we have going forward as well.
That's incredible. Bill, what are you seeing in the Deep South?
Yeah, so echoing a little bit what Scott's saying, I would kind of take a step back, more macro. If you kind of look at 21 through 23, the post-COVID years and all the money out there, the businesses really had a huge boom, across the board with cash flow and valuations and low interest rates. And then 2024 came along and we saw a lot of businesses have some declines, in terms of, 10, 20% off of revenue off of those 3 years post-COVID. And so we had a lot of sellers that paused. They said, wait a minute, the valuation we thought is probably not going to happen. And so we're having a lot of conversations, probably similar to what Jonathan's talking about, people that, some of them even committed to us to sell, and we're like, okay, we get it. We'll take a pause and we'll go back. So we're kind of refreshing those opportunities and bringing them to market here over the next few months. And so that's been a kind of a delayed 2024 into 2024 rolling over to this year. And so from that standpoint, that I think we're seeing a lot of pickup there. But from a South regional location, we're really counter-cyclical, I think, to our market's so service-based. It's not a lot of heavy manufacturing. All of our business owners are totally limited on the labor, right? And if there's not blue-collar labor out there, their growth is limited. And but our cost of living relative to some of you other guys in y'all's markets is still pretty damn cheap, from my, just so we still have a lot of people moving this direction. I know South Florida has been seeing that since the beginning of time, but people are starting to discover our little central Gulf Coast and still moving this direction. So that's kind of keeping us even more stabilized, I think, than maybe some of the other areas, and certainly allows for us to attract more buyers to certain deals.
All right. Well, going from perhaps lower housing costs to higher housing costs, let's jump right to Chicago. Let's see what's happening in Chicago.
Yeah, manufacturing in the Midwest is still pretty strong. We did close, I think it was a little over 5 deals, actually. A couple of them were holdovers for 2024, just based on that it took a little longer with the bank or something. That seems to be the case for us in Q1 typically. So I would say we had a couple good ones, a couple decent sized ones, and then the Main Street is still really, really strong. You know what I mean? The salons and all the kind of, I don't want to say they're just smaller businesses. Those continue to go on and on and on, and those don't really stop, right? That there seems to be a lot of that still trading, actually. So we don't see any slowdown, and we certainly see a lot of consistency still here with the amount of listings that we have, amount that have LOIs or in due diligence, and then the amount that actually we're closing. So yeah, I didn't see any wide gaps one way or another.
All right. And I headed up to New York. We were just up there in New York with you, Sam. And so I know a little of this, but I think you're seeing increased activity.
Oh, Andy, it's been amazing the level of activity that we're seeing. I think, like everybody else, we saw a little bit of a slowdown in the fourth quarter of last year. Everybody kind of pumped their brakes just a little bit, but they came into Q1 very hot, and we've had a ton of activity. I think it's been the busiest Q1 that I've ever had. And the entrepreneurship spirit is alive and well here in New York. Lots of people looking for good deals. We're getting a ton of interest around our manufacturing and distribution companies. Anything that's B2B service related, also getting a ton of action. It's just a great time to own a business in New York for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I know they're working hard to keep and bring back some of those businesses. I saw a lot of reports about that. And, we'll go right to the heart of the country in the middle of the East Coast here, to the belly of the beast, right in Washington, D.C., down to Richmond and all those areas in between. Rupesh, what are you seeing out there?
Thanks, Andy. I think our geography, we cover Wilmington, Delaware, South, all the way to Southwest Virginia. We cover Hagerstown, Maryland, and all the way to Virginia Beach. So we operate in metro area. We operate in very rural area. We operate in a developing area. So one thing we have seen when people start talking about a smaller snapshot or a shorter time period, business buying and selling is more like a rubber band activity. It gets a little bit dense and then stretches out. But if we take a little bit quarterly snapshot, I think I have seen in terms of seller side a little bit higher than previous year, last year. But in terms of very surprisingly, the buyer activity is much, much higher. That means there is a tremendous interest getting into entrepreneurship. And I would like to add specifically greater Washington, D.C. metro area. So many in terms of activity transitioning from corporate government to entrepreneurship. And I always tell agent that be creative, try to help transitioning corporate people and show them right business. So frankly, if I have 10 times more inventory, I think there is a demand, much more demand than probably. And last thing that we passed a COVID. So when we go through financial recasting, bank financing, we are done with looking at 19 and 20 financials. Now we look at 22, 23, 24.
Right.
That brings the valuation very stable, very bank financeable. And on top of that, Transworld partners, agents are very trained to be creative in terms of deal making. That makes it very lucrative for buyer.
Yeah, I picked up a few things from there. And I think one of the things that I picked up is that there's a lot of buyer interest out there. A lot of people perhaps thinking about changing their jobs because of things that are going on in the economy, whether we're bringing home manufacturing, which I think, Sam, you talked about a little bit. And I think people looking at the B2B locally here. And so I think there's a lot of movement out there in the world. In fact, Biz Buy Sell was talking about the median price going up. However, business owners, surveyed business owners said 37% of them reported increased costs due to potential tariffs, that they're looking at that. 17% have already had some supply chain disruptions, and 9%, which I think is pretty low, saw a loss of international business. So, although the world is kind of changing out there, we've been through this before. We've seen businesses, be resilient. And I'll just tell it, we're working on an importer of wine that we're trying to get closed pretty soon in the next couple of months. It has been delayed. So I think what we're going to see in Q2 and Q3, as all this kind of noise kind of filters out and things, get settled and calmed down. They were even talking today about some tariff talks that are going on. That wine importer is going to get done. So because people feel like it's going to be 10% of tariffs or less, and we're just going to build that in. And I have another deal that already has an earnout baked into it, based that people are worried about the Q1 and Q2 of 2025 and moving forward, and the seller is willing to move forward. So I don't think it's going to, I think we're going to continue to have a great year but we might have to have special situations out there. So, I'll go kind of in reverse order what we just did. Rupesh, what are you seeing out there as far as people, kind of Q2, Q3, what do you think moving forward?
I think a great question. And looking at Q1, and right now, compared to 23 versus 24 and 25, we have seen a different pattern. 80% or more deal has seller finance involved. The reason why it's very lucrative for buyer, because buyer feels confident. At the same time, seller is going to make 8-10% interest on their loan. Where else can they get kind of guaranteed interest supported by the business? That is the pattern. We are going to make it more creative. We are working on a $7 million deal, and that is 10% down, 90% owner finance. I have not seen in my 11 years in local market that kind of a seller finance is opening up. So this is the opportunity. People coming up with more entrepreneurship nature. Seller is opening up with more seller financing. And as Warren Buffett says, everybody's nervous, it's time to buy.
It is. Absolutely. So Sam just nodded your head. You want to add to that?
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot. So we have a number of buyers who obviously express concerns around tariffs and how is that going to impact the client's business. I have one client who imports cheese. They're a specialty cheese retail shop, and their customers are not price sensitive, so they're not worried about it. I have another customer who they're in light manufacturing. Same thing. They're like, "Are you worried about material costs?" Well, if we have tariffs and we got to cover 10%, our customers that they're selling to are not going to be concerned about it. I think what we're going to see is, at least from what I'm hearing from our buyers, is that they want to see monthly P&Ls. They want to track it as the year goes on, especially those that are going into due diligence. They want to see them every month. And so if you're a business owner and you don't do monthlies, you should start doing them, because that's what a buyer is going to be looking for to make sure that there isn't some sort of drop off coming.
Yeah, great advice. And, Matt, I know you're at a closing today. You were talking about being at a closing today. So, tell us what you're seeing in the Midwest and talking about that manufacturing base.
Yeah, absolutely. So it just depends what you're manufacturing for, right? So in case we had a multi-check that was tied to the construction industry. So they were a little bit concerned about, okay, well, what is that going to look like for lumber? What's going to look like for home starts? There was some tied to that. We also had some bigger listings that came in, but the biggest thing that I'm seeing is the SBA, right? So outside of all just what's going on with tariffs and things, the SBA, this 3% fee that kind of allows come back where, okay, I'm going to give you an LOI. Well, wait a minute. I have to think about this again before I kind of restructure that LOI to give you, on the letter of intent. So we're seeing a little bit more of we like it. We still want to move forward, but we want to take into some costs that we didn't maybe anticipate when we put this, our initial thoughts together for it. So I would also say and I don't know if it's luck of the draw, but we've seen definitely bigger listings that we've signed up and made the life stage of our business here in Chicago as well. But we're seeing better listings come to the table as well now. So I think that's just based on maybe a little bit of our place in the market right here in Chicago.
Yeah, well, I think Scott mentioned that earlier, that some bigger deals were coming to the market, and for some reason these young kids are owning them. So. Bill, you were talking earlier that you have a lot of service businesses in the South. Tell me, are there any concerns or, what you're seeing moving forward into Q2 and Q3?
Yeah, I think there certainly are concerns, but I think it's just kind of situational, right? I mean, we've got one deal right now that it's in the agricultural industry, without getting too far along, because it's still in process, and it's we've had a flood of international buyers interested in this deal all of a sudden because of the tariffs and the mitigation of the tariffs, and being able to have a home base here in the South to defray some of that cost. So that on that side is certainly helpful for our customer and our client, and the industry kind of shake up with what's happening there is really, for our client, looking excellent because of the amount of things that are going on. So but you got, I think these are kind of short-term things. I don't know that they necessarily, if you're there, you might be able to capture a deal, but it's got to make more sense than just tariffs, because you don't, that's a piece of the pie, but certainly not always everything. And but from our landscape down here, we're we've got if you throw the retail and the restaurants aside for a minute, you look at kind of the construction. We have a lot of specialty contractors. Going back to I think it was Rupesh's point earlier, was we have this general sense that most businesses are so desensitized to price increases right now, and a lot of our businesses are able to catch up, right? They're able to price it into their contracts and price it into their, they're passing the cost along, and I don't know that there's a lot of worry that they're not going to get that, in a lot of their deals. So, I mean, at some point, the consumers and the retail and those side of things are probably spending less, right? But, a lot of the B2B stuff seems to be going and being as hot as ever in what we're seeing.
Yeah, no, agreed. And Scott's nodding his head up there in Minnesota. You talked about some of the larger deals coming to the market. Is it, obviously they're not trying to time this, and it's never a good time to time your business when you go and sell. But, what do you think is driving, what do you think will drive Q2 and Q3?
I think to Bill's point, I think the important thing for us is to understand each business, because there's going to be businesses that are devastated by potential tariffs, and there's others that are thriving because of it, right? So how do we understand what their situation is and what's best for them? I think that's one of the things that we do as a company, we do really well, is understanding what their needs are and what they're trying to accomplish and how do we get there, because there's an infinite number of deal structures that we can put in place. And just a matter of what we can use to accomplish what they're looking for. So we had a conversation this morning, for example, with the changes in SBA laws potentially coming on June 1st, and there's going to be a higher equity required, but then how do we get around that and how do we handle that? And in long term, that's probably good, for sustainability with SBA and just firm up the whole program a little bit more, but certainly we have to pivot a little bit and do things a little differently than we did in the past to accomplish what the sellers are wanting. So, yeah,
I agree. I mean, I think the good news of this whole thing is that the SBA is in very good shape. I mean, the banks are, if you want to talk about economic downturns in 2009, 2010, the balance sheets were a mess. They were scrambling. There's plenty of money out there. And I know that's probably why, Jonathan, you're seeing an increase in buyers' activity as well, right?
Yeah, we're seeing an increase in buyers, sellers at all different levels. And I just want to piggyback off of what Scott had said. Things change all the time. If it was COVID, if it was the tariffs, it's the SBA change. Through it all, I think that what we've been able to do is really get in front of the changes, really educate from the very beginning our buyers and sellers on what to expect. We have several deals under contract throughout our 3 states, and with the SBA changes, some of them aren't going to make it by April 1st. So we're going back and educating some of the buyers and sellers on why the deal structure that we originally thought of isn't working. But from the get-go, what Scott said, understanding the business needs, the business owners, the buyers, what assets they have to work with. It's kind of like the same game. I think of what we do is kind of like playing Tetris. It's the same game. The pieces, you just have to fit the right pieces in the right sequence. And when you get really good, you get to anticipate where among a multitude of different options to sequence that situation that comes up, and kind of by looking forward. But educating our buyers and sellers has always been key to address these changes. It's always a good time to buy a business. It's always a good time to sell the business. And what determines that is exactly what Scott said, in my opinion. What does the buyer want? What does the buyer need? What does the seller want? What does the seller need? And, we got to react and advise accordingly.
Yeah, agreed. I think this has been a great discussion about, what's going on right now in the marketplace and what's going to happen going forward. I'm going to do a quick lightning round to wrap this up. So if you could give me a thought for the rest of the year, or maybe some advice for buyers and sellers, how they want to, how they should be thinking in the next 6 months. Let's do that. So I'll start with Matt. Why don't you give me a quick blurb?
Yeah, I just think the biggest thing that we always notice is just the paralysis by analysis stuff, right? So it's like you're looking, it's like the water's fine. You got to jump in the water at some point here, right? So this I just see people, it's a year later and they're still looking for a business, and it's like, come on, like what are you doing here exactly? So I would just say, not every business is going to be perfect. Like, it's going to have some warts on it. If it was perfect, it probably wouldn't be for sale right now, or maybe it was a retiree or something. But just you gotta take there's a small leap of faith here to jump in as well.
Excellent advice, Sam.
Yeah, for our sellers out there, prepare, right? The more prepared you are, the better you're gonna have, the better chance you're gonna have to sell your business for the higher value. And that's a big thing that we see across a lot of our deals, is that the owners that are prepped have higher value exits that happen faster. There's just more competition for them. And for our buyers out there, I don't know about you guys, but I get some buyers who think they're going to buy a business with no money down. I haven't seen it yet. So have realistic expectations when you're coming into that deal.
That's great. We did that on the last episode. So, Bill.
Yeah, I'm going to say just relationships and trust, right? I mean, I think people value authenticity. Buyers, particularly first-time buyers, we deal a lot with them, and so we have to be able to guide them in a way that that puts them in the right spot, the right time, but also educate them to make sure that when their gut's churning and they know that's the one for them, that they need to be ready to act quick and not delay, and then also on ones that that aren't the right fit, let them know that, let them know. And so I think it's important to the business and what we do, and I think all the Transworlds do an excellent job of making sure that we're doing good deals for good people.
Excellent. Scott.
Yeah, no, I echo all of those things. For sellers, I think dream. What do you want? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Is it a family transition, or what's the plan long term? And help us, let us help plan for that and transition however that is going to look. So I agree with Bill with the consistency with accounting, and in that there's lots of things, of course, that a seller can do to keep increasing value. Buyers, I tell every day, everybody wants a deal, but life is too short to do something you're not passionate about. So what's your passion? What do you love? And a business you might pay a little bit more for, but you're passionate about, I've seen very successful, and I've seen people not passionate about something but get a really good deal, not successful. So make sure you're doing what you love and passionate about.
Absolutely. Jonathan.
I would say to all the buyers and sellers out there, work with a good broker. All of the things that my colleagues have said, a good broker can bring to the table, help you prepare, work through situations, structure deals. For the sellers out there, if you want to try to do a for sale by owner, just know that an average broker can get you on average 20% or more than if you did it yourself. You could avoid the entire brain damage of doing it yourself and get more money, do less work, and be happier for it. There is such a an asymmetric understanding of what it takes to buy and sell a business. And if you're doing it for the first time, in either side, you're learning as you go. You need a good broker who's experienced and who can get the job done. According to the Exit Planning Institute, only 20 to 30% of all businesses that ever get listed sell. Our numbers are much higher, and we've got over 1,000 great agents and advisors throughout 49, soon to be 50 states at Transworld. So whatever state you're in good hands with Transworld.
Yeah. Excellent. And Rupesh.
Andy, I think for seller, I wanted to tell one thing, that don't wait till it's too late. If you think about you are going to run out of gas, don't wait till like last drop of the gas. Give us enough time. What's the common between an attorney, a CPA, a doctor, and a broker? We are here to solve the problem. We have been doing this for like decades. We have experience. So talk to us. It's a confidential conversation. Get valuation done. Whether you want to sell the business or not, know the numbers of your business. You should know your stats. For buyers, I would say like that broker is there to solve your problem. Not like, 30 minutes of YouTube video can make you the best buyer in the world. Without money, you can not build the empire. You know what you are buying. What is your experience? How much money do you have? Talk to a broker. Be loyal to a broker. Explain your situation. Tell them what is your problem. And they can show you the solution. And probably that will surprise you. I would same thing that talk to the broker, explain the situation. Like a doctor, explain your situation. Don't hide. Be upfront, be clear, and broker can surprise you and help to solve your problem.
Yeah. I think you've heard some great advice. I think it's pretty consistent across the United States, little differences here and there, but what you're hearing out there, it's still a great time to buy or sell a business. Don't let the noise of what's going on in the economy or what's changing in rules or changing in the interest rates or tariffs. The business people don't hesitate. Good, successful people buy when they can. And you even, somebody's pointed out that, you buy when things are down. Things aren't down. There's great financing out there. There's plenty to do. This is not the end of this episode. We have a great listing of the week for you. We have a great deal of the week for you. And we'll be back with a new episode soon. Thanks, everybody who's on the line today for joining us. Really appreciate your input. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Jessica, you know what time it is?
Money time?
Almost. It's time for listing of the week.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. And it is listing of the week. And I am very happy to be joined by Jake Tobin of our Transworld Business Advisors of Fort Lauderdale office. Jake, welcome. You have a great listing to talk about.
Thank you for having me, Andy. Yes, it's actually a screen print shop down here local, and they've been around for over 2 decades. They do a bunch of flat surface, round, oval, convexing, concaving, screen printing, pad printing, all sorts of printing, not only for individuals or private parties, but other companies in a rush order fashion.
That sounds great. I mean, a lot of that stuff sounds like specialty kind of stuff they do.
Yeah. And, they've been around over 2 decades and really just want to retire, enjoy what they've built. He's an auto fanatic and so loves doing the car shows and ultimately wants to spend more time with his wife and built a company. And we have it listed today over $100,000 worth of equipment and looking to the new owner to...
Sure. Yep, it sounds great. So give us some of the numbers. What are they asking?
So they do roughly about $200,000 per year. We're asking $150,000. The SDE is right around 30, and we think we're in a good place.
Okay, well, great. Are they offering financing?
They're not. They're looking for a cash buyer.
Okay, well, it sounds like a great way to expand if you have a current business So if you want to buy a client base, give us a call. Jake, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
You can reach me at 954-999-2233, or you can reach out via email at jtobin@tworld.com.
All right. Thanks for coming in today, Jake.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, Andy, do you know what time it is? It's time for our deal of the week.
Deal of the week.
Sold.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is Deal of the Week, and I am so fortunate to have Rupesh Barard here in the studio to talk about the Deal of the Week. And Rupesh, welcome to Florida. Rupesh is from the great state of Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, West Virginia, and a very successful franchisee and selling lots of deals. And you have a great one for us today.
Hey, indeed. Yes, we have Deal of the Week, and I'm so proud. It was so amazing. Good deal for good people. We have just sold 4 locations of Med Spa.
Wow.
Owned by single owner. And we were able to find it was not a strategic buyer. It is not from the industry, but the local entrepreneur.
Wow.
And they wanted to diversify into different area. Amazing deal for both seller as well as buyer. The deal structure, we had sold for $1.2 million.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be a little bit creative because it involves licenses for landlords and financing. So based on the creativity between all the parties, we were able to get 75% SBA finance. Seller was ready to hold 10% note. Buyer came up with 10% down. And the best part is seller decided to stay in the business and support the business for initially 90 to 180 days.
Wow, that's great. So sounds like a good deal. I mean, obviously, SBA loan. It's funny. We hear that a lot, that it's not always a strategic buyer. It's somebody wanting to get into business or another line of business, and it's a local entrepreneur. And that's what we're good at, matching people, right?
Absolutely. And especially Andy, we had our office, we have a team structure. We have Andy Shah, who brought the buyer on the table. We have Neil Gulati, who brought the seller on the table. And we were creative because of seller's willingness to hold the note and post-closing support. We were able to gain higher value than anybody will pay with 100% cash or just SBA loan.
Right. So it sounds like a good deal. Rupesh, what's the best way to get in touch with your team if somebody wants to sell another business?
Sure, Andy. And I'm available all the time. My direct cell phone number is area code 804-835-6363, or they can send me an email, Rupesh, RUPESH @tworld.com.
Yeah, I mean, we not too many entrepreneurs give out their direct cell phone number. So there you are. Rupesh, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you, Andy. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends on social media. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app. If you have questions, would like to appear, or have suggestions for topics for the show, get in contact with us through our website, thedealboardpodcast.com.